place in December of 2026. Caitlin, I'm just curious because you said that this moment right now is one of the biggest moments the WNBA has ever seen.
Stop scrolling, because this isn't just another sports highlight. It's a corporate chess move disguised as a Sunday night broadcast. NBC just brought the NBA back to their airwaves after more than 20 years. And instead of playing it safe with a traditional retired legend, they placed the biggest superstar in basketball, Caitlin Clark, at the center of the universe. We aren't talking about a halftime cameo or a quick hello from the crowd. This was a strategic takeover. Lakers versus Knicks. Madison Square Garden, the brightest lights in the world, and seated right next to Hall of Famers, was a 24-year-old woman who hasn't even played 3 full seasons in the WNBA. If you didn't watch it live, you probably saw the clips. But what you might have missed is the business logic behind it. Because this wasn't just a broadcast, it was a calculated power shift. And if you want to understand where the NBA, the WNBA, and the entire media landscape is headed, you need to understand exactly what happened on February 1st, 2026.
Growing up, some called it pig, some called it horse. It's a kid's game. Today, we're calling it NBC.
Before we break down the night, the drama, and the billion-dollar implications, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're tracking the money, the moves, and the moments that actually matter in sports. To understand why Caitlin Clark was sitting at that desk, you have to understand the nightmare facing every legacy broadcaster right now. NBC just paid a fortune as part of the league's massive 11-year, $76 billion media deal to bring the NBA back home. The nostalgia is nice. Bob Costas introducing the broadcast tugs at the heartstrings. But nostalgia doesn't pay the bills in 2026. It doesn't move the needle with the demographic that advertisers are actually fighting over. Their core audience is aging. The fans who watch pre-game shows religiously in the 90s and 2000s are still watching, but they aren't growing. They're the same people. And as much as networks love loyalty, the television business runs on growth. Meanwhile, there's this massive, engaged, digitally native audience that consumes sports entirely differently. They grew up watching highlights on their phones, following athletes on social media, and consuming sports through TikTok clips and Twitter threads. These fans don't have loyalty to a theme song or a traditional broadcast format. They don't tune in just because the graphics are slick or because the network has history. They need a reason. They need a person they actually want to hear from. And right now, Caitlin Clark is the most compelling reason in all of sports.
Here's Clark. Wow! You bet! From beyond the logo! And a little point afterward.
We aren't just talking about a good basketball player. We are talking about a cultural phenomenon that fundamentally altered the landscape of her sport before she even turned 23. She broke the NCAA scoring record, a record that had stood for over 50 years. She turned regular season Iowa Hawkeyes games into national events that networks fought to broadcast. When she played, people who had never watched women's basketball in their lives suddenly became experts.
University of Iowa guard Caitlin Clark, smashing records and captivating fans across the nation.
She made the NCAA Women's Tournament the most watched basketball event in America, men's or women's, during her final run. That isn't hyperbole. That is a documented fact. When she entered the WNBA draft, it became a primetime spectacle that pulled ratings networks usually reserve for NFL games. Her rookie season with the Indiana Fever was unlike anything the league had ever witnessed. Arena attendance exploded everywhere she went. Television ratings for WNBA games she played in were up hundreds of % compared to the previous season. Merchandise sales went through the roof, selling out within hours of dropping. She did not just move the needle. She broke the needle, built a new one, and moved that one too. And here is the thing that a lot of people in traditional media still miss. Her appeal is not limited to women's basketball fans. That is the old way of thinking about audiences in silos. Caitlin Clark's fan base is enormous and genuinely diverse.
Clark, she fires, and goes!
NBA fans watch her because they recognize greatness. College football fans watch her because they appreciate competitors. People who do not even follow sports know her name because she has transcended the boundaries of athletics and entered the mainstream cultural conversation. She is a name you hear in barbershops, in corporate boardrooms, and on late-night talk shows. She transcends the sport in a way that very few athletes in any era have managed to do. NBC understands this at a molecular level. They saw it firsthand during her college career. Remember when they put her record-breaking game behind a Peacock paywall? The decision was controversial at the time. People assumed it would limit viewership. Instead, the opposite happened. People who had never subscribed to a streaming service in their lives signed up just to watch her play. They navigated interfaces they didn't understand, typed in credit card numbers they usually guarded carefully, all for the chance to watch a college basketball game. That is not normal. That is not even rare. That is essentially unprecedented for a college athlete. Streaming services usually acquire subscribers through massive libraries of content, through exclusive series, through years of building a catalog. Caitlin Clark acquired them in a single afternoon. So, when it came time to relaunch Sunday Night Basketball, the decision was not really a decision at all. It was obvious. They didn't just book her for a random appearance on some forgettable Tuesday night game between two lottery teams where nobody would notice if things went sideways. They calibrated every single detail of this rollout with surgical precision, understanding that they weren't just launching a broadcast. They were launching a message. Let's set the scene. February 1st, 2026. 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Madison Square Garden. They call it the Mecca of basketball for a reason. It is the most famous arena in the world, the building where legends are made and history breathes through the rafters. On the court, the Lakers were taking on the Knicks in a matchup that always carries weight regardless of the records. LeBron James was in the building, and given his age and the speculation around his future, this had the feel of potentially being his final appearance at the Garden as a Laker. Courtside seats were selling for over $1,000 on the secondary market. The energy was electric hours before tip-off. This was not a soft launch. This was a statement. NBC did not ease Caitlin Clark into the broadcast world with a pre-tape feature or a quick hit during a timeout. They threw her straight into the fire under the brightest lights the sport has to offer. They were essentially telling the world, we believe she belongs here, and we're not hiding that belief. And they did not stop there. NBC pulled out every weapon in the arsenal for this debut. Bob Costas, the voice of a generation, was there to introduce the broadcast with the gravitas only he can bring. Michael Jordan made a surprise appearance in a special segment called Insights to Excellence. Let that sink in. They put Caitlin Clark on the same broadcast night as Michael Jordan, the player widely considered the greatest to ever touch a basketball. That is the level of company NBC placed her in for the launch of their most important sports property since they got the NBA rights back. The last time NBC aired an NBA game was the 2002 finals between the Nets and Lakers. Over 2 decades of silence. Over 20 years of the league living on other networks. And when they finally came back, they chose Caitlin Clark to help kick the door open. That tells you everything about how they view her value. She joined the Basketball Night in America desk alongside host Maria Taylor and legends Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, and Tracy McGrady. That is a panel with decades of NBA experience, with Hall of Fame credentials, with resumes that include scoring titles and unforgettable playoff moments. And from the moment she appeared on screen, it was clear she belonged. There was no deer in the headlights look. There was no awkward hesitation. She looked comfortable, confident, and prepared. She talked about the mystique of Madison Square Garden, admitting with genuine honesty that it was actually her first time at the arena for a Knicks game. She noted that there was just a different type of buzz in the building, a feeling you can't replicate anywhere else. She spoke about star players rising to the occasion in big moments, drawing on her own experience in high-pressure situations. She discussed Luka Doncic specifically, breaking down how he manipulates defenders to create space with a level of detail that made the Hall of Famers next to her nod along in agreement. She added a line that resonated deeply with viewers. I think that's something I can certainly learn from. That moment, an active WNBA superstar admitting she studies NBA players to improve her own game, built a bridge between the leagues that no marketing campaign could ever construct. It was authentic, it was genuine, and it was powerful. Her Fever teammate, Sophie Cunningham, watched from home and later said on her podcast that Clark was a natural up there. Aya Wilson, another Fever teammate who works as an NBC contributor for women's college basketball, posted on Instagram asking the question a lot of people were thinking, what can't you do? The social media reaction was overwhelmingly positive, with clips of her analysis circulating across platforms throughout the night. But here is where the story gets even more interesting. The on-air performance was impressive, but the real magic happened off-air, away from the cameras, in those unscripted moments that reveal who someone truly is when the spotlight dims. Before the broadcast, NBC set up a modified game of HORSC between Clark and former 20-year NBA veteran Jamal Crawford. For those who don't know, Jamal Crawford is not just some random retired player. He is a legendary ball handler, a 3-time Sixth Man of the Year award winner, a guy whose crossover was so filthy defenders actually fell down trying to guard him. He has been in countless gyms and played against the best in the world. This was not a mismatch in the way people might assume. Now, if you know anything about Caitlin Clark, you know she does not lose quietly. The behind-the-scenes story came out days later on the Let Her Shoot podcast. Sarah Chavnik, the director of the segment, revealed that Clark lost the first game. Most celebrities in that situation would laugh it off, do the obligatory good game handshake, and move on with their day. That's what the segment called for. That's what the schedule allowed. Clark did not do that. Immediately after losing, she turned to the producers and said, "No, best of 3. Nobody had planned for a best of 3. They were supposed to shoot a quick, fun segment and get her to hair and makeup for the broadcast." The producers looked at each other. The schedule was tight, but Clark simply refused to walk away with a loss on camera. She wasn't being difficult or demanding. She was being who she is. She is wired to compete, not just in games that count, but in every single thing she does. That moment, more than any analysis or pre-game breakdown, tells you everything about who she is as a person and as an athlete. She is not performing competitiveness for the cameras. She is not turning it on and off based on the stakes. She is wired that way at her core. It is the same reason she pulls up from the logo with the game on the line. It is the same reason she trash talks with a smile on her face. The stage doesn't intimidate her. It fuels her. And the thought of losing, even in a meaningless game of HORSC before a broadcast, was simply unacceptable. Sarah Chavnik also added something that stuck with people long after the segment aired. She said she judges athletes by how they treat the people they work with behind the scenes. The crew members, the production assistants, the people who bring them water and fix their microphones. And she said that Clark is someone you could safely meet as your hero and never be disappointed. In an era where fans are often let down by the reality of celebrity interactions, that kind of testimony carries real weight. It means that the persona we see on camera is not an act. It means she is genuinely that competitive, that focused, and that grounded. The HORSC game did end up going to a 3rd round, by the way. And while the network has kept the final result under wraps, those who were there say Clark's competitiveness left an impression on everyone in the building. It's the kind of story that makes you root for her even harder, knowing that the fire we see on the court burns just as bright when the cameras are off. Of course, there is always a catch with live television. Nothing ever goes perfectly according to plan. Fans who tuned in at 6 p.m. sharp, eager to see Caitlin Clark make her debut, quickly grew frustrated. Instead of seeing her immediately, they had to wait through 37 minutes of pre-game coverage before she finally appeared on screen. 37 minutes. In the age of short attention spans and instant gratification, that feels like an eternity. Social media lit up with frustration almost immediately. "Where is Caitlin Clark?" became the main complaint flooding X and the YouTube comment sections. Some viewers were genuinely infuriated, feeling that the network had wasted their time and bait and switched them by promoting her heavily and then delaying her appearance. There were accusations of poor planning, of disrespecting the audience, of using her name to draw viewers and then serving them something else. The comments were harsh in some corners, with fans threatening to turn off the broadcast entirely. But here's the thing about live television. The frustration itself is a form of engagement. People cared enough to be angry. They cared enough to complain. They cared enough to wait. And when she finally appeared, the numbers did the talking in a way that silenced any criticism of the network strategy. The Lakers versus Knicks game that night pulled 4.5 million viewers across NBC and Telemundo. Let that number sink in. 4.5 million viewers for a regular season Sunday night NBA game in February. That made it the most watched Sunday night regular season NBA game since 2002, excluding opening night and Christmas Day games, which always draw inflated numbers. We're talking about a 24-year high. In an era where linear television ratings are declining across every category, NBC somehow managed to turn back the clock and deliver an audience number that would have been impressive 20 years ago, let alone today. The game itself was good. The Knicks won 112-100 in a competitive, entertaining matchup. But make no mistake, the ratings were driven by curiosity about Clark. People wanted to see how she would do. They wanted to see if she would stumble, if she would look nervous, if she would prove the skeptics right. Instead, they saw someone who looked like she had been doing this for years. NBC Sports president Rick Cordella was asked about Clark's future with the network just days after the broadcast. His answer was telling. He didn't give the typical corporate non-answer about evaluating performance and taking things one step at a time. He pointed directly to Clark's existing relationship with Xfinity and Comcast, called her part of the family, and made it crystal clear that this was just the beginning. He confirmed her second scheduled appearance is March 29th in Oklahoma City when the Thunder host the Knicks. But everyone watching that night understood that something bigger was unfolding. This was not a guest spot. This was an audition that she had already passed with flying colors. And the network was smart enough to lock her in before anyone else could. Now, here's where the speculation gets genuinely interesting. During the broadcast, Sam Flood, the executive producer and president of NBC Sports, teased something that sent the internet into detective mode. He mentioned in an interview that fans might see Caitlin with a basketball in her hand on set in the future. On the surface, that sounds innocent enough. She's a basketball player. Of course, she might hold a basketball, but the way he said it, the timing of it, suggested something more was planned. Why would you specifically mention that detail unless you were planting a seed? Were they planning that requires her to have a ball in her hands on a studio set rather than on a court? The sneaker world is buzzing with theories. Soul Retriever and Sports Illustrated have both been tracking the timeline of Caitlin's signature Nike shoe with the intensity usually reserved for classified government documents. Initially, the shoe was rumored for a spring 2026 release. That made sense. Get it out during the WNBA season when she's playing every night and the spotlight is brightest. But the latest intel from trusted sneaker insiders suggests the public drop has been pushed to the holiday 2026 season. That delay raised eyebrows. Why push it back when momentum is at an all-time high? Here is the key detail that connects the dots. Clark herself confirmed on the New Heights podcast with Travis and Jason Kelce that she will be wearing the shoe on the court during the upcoming WNBA season. So the shoes exist. They are ready. She will be playing in them, but the public can't buy them yet. So what if the televised debut isn't on the hardwood, but on the broadcast desk? Imagine the scene. March 29th, live from Oklahoma City. The pregame show is rolling. Caitlin sits down at the desk alongside the legends. The conversation naturally turns to gear, to sneakers, to the evolution of basketball footwear. She smiles, reaches under the desk, and pulls out a box. She opens it, and there it is. Her signature Nike shoe, revealed to a national audience for the first time. No press release, no coordinated social media drop, just a live, organic moment that feels real and unscripted. The retail price is reportedly set at $140, which puts it in the sweet spot of being accessible without feeling cheap. The technology inside is supposedly, according to sources who claim to have seen early samples, nothing they've ever put into a basketball shoe before. That could be marketing hype, or it could be legitimate innovation. Nike doesn't throw around phrases like that lightly. They have a legacy to protect. What better launch pad could you possibly construct? Millions of viewers. The biggest basketball broadcast of the week. The most famous arena in the world. It will be the most talked about shoe reveal since the original Air Jordans debuted on Michael Jordan's feet in 1984. And the beauty of it is, it wouldn't feel like a commercial. It would feel like a moment. That is the difference between traditional marketing and cultural integration. NBC and Nike understand that distinction at a fundamental level. And if this is indeed the plan, it represents a masterclass in cross-platform promotion. Of course, with any move this bold, the critics come out of the woodwork. It's almost a law of nature at this point. When someone rises as quickly as Caitlin Clark has, there will always be people looking for reasons why she doesn't deserve the attention, why she hasn't earned the platform, why she should wait her turn like everyone else. The criticisms follow a predictable pattern. They say she is too young. They say she has no broadcast experience. They say she hasn't earned the right to sit next to Hall of Famers who spent decades in the league. They point to her age, her relatively short professional career and claim that she should pay her dues before stepping into a role this prominent. To those people, respectfully, you have not been paying attention. Caitlin Clark has been in front of cameras since she was in high school, breaking records in Iowa and handling media attention with a poise that most adults never develop. She did a Manning cast-style alternate broadcast during the Final Four, sitting in a relaxed, conversational format and breaking down the game with insight and humor. She was phenomenal. Not just good for someone her age, not just decent for a first-timer. She was natural, insightful, funny, and genuinely compelling to watch. She hopped in a Yankee broadcast booth during a game and held her own with seasoned professionals who have been calling baseball for decades. She handled the banter, the analysis, the pace of live television without a single awkward moment. She has done countless interviews, press conferences, and media appearances since she was a teenager. And if you can find a clip of her looking uncomfortable or saying something regrettable, you are searching harder than most. Her basketball IQ is off the charts. This is not someone who is going to sit there and offer surface-level observations about who wants it more or who needs to step up. Caitlin sees the game at a different level entirely. She reads defenses like a quarterback reads coverages. She understands spacing, timing, angles, and passing lanes with a sophistication that impresses NBA coaches who have been in the league for decades. Bringing that perspective to an NBA broadcast is fresh. It is exciting, and it is exactly the kind of differentiation NBC needs in a crowded media landscape. Because let us be honest, sports pregame shows can get stale. They can feel formulaic. The same retired players telling the same stories, offering the same predictable takes, using the same cliches about toughness and heart. It becomes background noise after a while. Caitlin brings something that cannot be manufactured or taught. She brings the perspective of an active elite athlete who plays a style that mirrors the modern NBA. High-volume threes, pace and space, creative playmaking. She is the perfect analyst for this era of basketball because she literally plays this era of basketball. She's not describing a game that used to exist. She's describing the game as it is played right now at the highest level by her and her peers. Beyond the broadcast itself, this move does something even more important for the sport as a whole. For years, the NBA and the WNBA have felt like separate universes, separate broadcasts, separate audiences, separate conversations. They exist under the same umbrella, but the overlap has historically been smaller than it should be. NBA fans who would love the WNBA often don't tune in because they don't feel connected to the players or the product. WNBA fans who love the NBA are often frustrated by the lack of crossover respect. Having the face of the WNBA sitting on an NBA broadcast desk, analyzing NBA games with credibility and authority, changes that dynamic. It builds a bridge that has been missing for too long. It tells the casual NBA fan who might never watch a WNBA game that this woman knows the game at an elite level. And if she can break down LeBron's pick and roll reads on a Sunday night, maybe her own games are worth watching on Tuesday. Maybe her insight translates. Maybe the respect is mutual. It is cross-promotion at its absolute finest, and the ripple effects are going to benefit both leagues for years to come. Young girls watching at home see someone who looks like them sitting at the big table, talking about the biggest games, treated as an equal by legends of the sport. That image sticks with you. It shapes what you believe is possible. Young boys watching see the same thing, and it normalizes the idea that women belong in basketball conversations at the highest level. That shifts culture in a way that no public service announcement ever could. And this reveals something about Caitlin Clark, the businesswoman, that often gets overlooked in the highlight reels and stat lines. She is 24 years old. She is in the early stages of her professional playing career, and she's already building a media empire that will outlast her playing days by decades. Most athletes wait until they retire to start thinking about their second act. They play for 15 or 20 years, accumulate wealth and fame, and then scramble to figure out what comes next when the cheering stops. Caitlin is building her post-playing career right now, while she is in her prime, while the spotlight is brightest, while every door is wide open. That is extraordinary foresight for someone her age. It tells you a lot about the team around her and her own understanding of how fleeting these windows of opportunity can be. One injury can change everything. One bad season can shift the narrative. She is maximizing every moment, not just for immediate gain, but for long-term positioning. And the synergy with her existing deals makes this even smarter. She has already signed with Xfinity, which is owned by Comcast, which is the parent company of NBC. So this is not some random opportunity that fell in her lap. This is a strategic alignment of corporate interests that benefits everyone involved. NBC gets the biggest draw in sports. Comcast activates its investment in Caitlyn through its own broadcast network. Caitlyn gets a platform that reaches tens of millions of people and adds broadcast experience to a resume that already includes record-breaking athletic performance and a portfolio of endorsement deals that rivals players twice her age. She is not just maximizing her current earning potential. She is building equity in her future. Every minute she spends on that NBC set is an investment in a career that could extend decades beyond her playing days. That is the kind of thinking that separates generational talents from one-hit wonders. But it will be dishonest to pretend that everything is smooth sailing from here. There is a tension simmering beneath all of this success, a cloud on the horizon that could disrupt the carefully constructed plans. During the broadcast, Clark spoke about the WNBA collective bargaining agreement negotiations, calling it one of the biggest moments we've ever had for all of women's sports. She didn't go into detail. She didn't pick sides. But her presence at that desk, on that network, discussing those negotiations was significant. The league and the players are at a standstill. The current CBA expires soon, and the negotiations over revenue sharing, salaries, travel conditions, and the structure of the season are intense. The players want a larger piece of a rapidly growing pie. The league wants stability and cost certainty. Both sides have valid arguments, and the rhetoric has been heating up behind closed doors. Clark, noticeably, is not playing in any offseason league like Unrivaled, the new 3-on-3 league started by Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier. She is recovering from a long season, yes. Every athlete needs rest, but she is also positioning herself strategically. She is not committed publicly to any particular stance. She has not aligned herself with either side of the negotiation. She is watching, waiting, and building her platform. And here is the key. She has a massive platform with NBC, a mainstream media outlet that reaches far beyond the usual WNBA audience. Just as these negotiations reach a boiling point, if the season is delayed by a lockout or a strike, who do you think the media turns to for the quote? Who has the microphone at the biggest network? Who can speak to both the player's perspective and the business reality in a way that resonates with casual fans? It is a fascinating position to be in. She could become the de facto face of the players' movement if she chooses to. She could also serve as a bridge between the league and the players, using her credibility with both sides to help find common ground. Or she could stay quiet and let others fight the battles while she focuses on her own career. Each path has risks and rewards. The uncertainty adds a layer of drama to everything she does. Every appearance, every interview, every comment will be parsed for hidden meaning about where she stands. And NBC, being the savvy network they are, will certainly want to be the platform where those conversations happen. The intersection of sports, business, and labor politics is rarely this compelling, but Clark's presence elevates everything she touches. What happens next? February 1st at Madison Square Garden wasn't just a debut. It wasn't just a successful night of television. It was a realignment of influence. It was NBC telling the world that the future of basketball media isn't waiting for the old guard to retire gracefully. It is already here, sitting at the desk, holding its own, and demanding attention. When the cameras went live and the music faded, the most consequential move of the night wasn't made on the hardwood. LeBron's final Garden appearance was noteworthy. The Knicks win was entertaining, but the real story was happening at the desk. The real story was Caitlyn Clark, 24 years old, in her first NBA broadcast, sitting next to Hall of Famers and looking like she had been doing it for decades. She didn't just hold her own. She commanded the room. She brought insight, personality, and a perspective that you simply cannot get from retired players who haven't touched a competitive court in years. She brought the energy of someone who is still in the fight, still grinding, still understanding what it feels like to face elite competition every night. The question now isn't whether she belongs there. That question was answered on February 1st with 4.5 million viewers watching. The question now is, who does the game belong to? Because if the trajectory continues the way it has been going, if she keeps breaking records and drawing ratings and handling every challenge with the same competitive fire she showed in that HORSE game, the game, both men's and women's, might just belong to her. She's not just a player. She is not just a broadcaster. She is a force that is reshaping the landscape of basketball media, whether the old guard is ready for it or not. And the beauty of it is, she is just getting started. The March 29th appearance in Oklahoma City is already circled on calendars. The signature shoe is coming. The CBA negotiations are looming. Every step forward opens new doors and creates new opportunities. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the business of sports and the strategy behind Caitlin Clark's rise, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We'll be back when she sits at that desk again in March. And you can bet we'll be watching every moment, including what's on her feet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.